What's going on, everyone? My name is Jason Vincent. I am a wedding and documentary photographer based out of Northwest Arkansas. And today, Sony has just announced the new 50mm f1.4 G Master lens. So if you're at all familiar with the Sony ecosystem of lenses, you'll know that the Sony 50mm f1.4 G Master lens is actually the second 50mm f1.4 lens that they have in their lineup. Now, the older lens is the 50mm f1.4 Carl Zeiss lens. We'll see how many times I can say 50mm f1.4 in this video. We'll see how that goes. But if you're familiar with that older lens, you'll know that it is it's kind of a heavy lens. It's still it has really good performance. But what this new G Master lens does is upgrades you to Sony's latest lens technology. So what you get is just a much more compact, lightweight system with the upgraded XD linear motor so that it's going to be faster autofocus speeds. It also has the built-in aperture ring. It has two programmable buttons. It has iris lock. It has a whole 9 yards, everything that you would expect from a G Master lens. Now, if we were to compare this lens to the older Carl Zeiss lens, what you'll find is that this new updated lens weighs 516 grams, where the older version weighed 780 grams. So that is a huge cut in weight while still maintaining the same focal length and aperture. And then you still get upgraded autofocus and things like that as well. Now, what I thought was kind of interesting is I wanted to go and compare this to other offerings because, 50mm f1.4 is a very popular focal length. When I was getting into photography, it was like the very first lens that people recommended I get. Just because, 50mm is basically the closest that you can get to the human eye. And so it's just a very popular focal length and people love just images that are produced at 50mm. What I found interesting is that Canon and Nikon both do not have a single 50mm f1.4 lens for their mirrorless lineup at all. So there's not really a ton of lenses to compare this to. You can compare it to the older Carl Zeiss f1.4 lens, which is built and designed by Sony. Or now we can compare it to the newly announced Sigma f1.4 art lens. Now, if you compare it to the Sigma lens, you'll find that the Sigma weighs 660 grams. And again, the Sony G Master lens weighs 516 grams. So it's still significantly lighter in comparison to, the just announced Sigma lens. You'll also notice that the Sony has a much better close focusing distance. So the Sigma has 17.8 inches for the close focus distance, and the Sony has 16 inches. So almost 2 full inches you can get closer to your subject when you're focusing with the G Master lens. Another thing that I really love that Sony did is they maintained the 67mm filter thread size across all of the trinity of G Master lenses. So the 24, the 35, and the 50. So you can use the same filter thread size for all three G Master lenses, which is great if you're running and gunning and you don't have to worry about, changing one lens and then changing to a different filter, or you don't have to have multiple filters for all your different lenses. Now, one thing that I did find it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It was just something that I needed to, mentally prepare myself and just kind of remember, is that I used the 50mm f1.4 lens in conjunction with my 24mm f1.4 G Master lens. And they're so similar in weight and size and just feel all around. And so I found myself reaching for one or the other and accidentally grabbing the opposite. And so I just had to make a mental note of this pocket is just for the 24mm lens and this pocket is just for the 50. I didn't have to stop in my thought process and be like, which lens am I grabbing? Another thing to consider when we're talking about autofocus speeds is if we compare this G Master lens to the Carl Zeiss version, the older version, the new G Master lens is rated at 1.9 times faster than that Carl Zeiss version. This lens is also specifically designed to be used with movies, so you won't get that weird focus breathing effect when you're focusing from a close subject to a far subject. You'll just be able to keep the viewer within that footage a little bit better because of that. It's also specifically designed to be used with slow motion, and so you can still use the autofocus tracking at up to 120 frames per second. In terms of reliability, this lens has the same things that you would find in all other G Master lenses. So it's dust and moisture resistant. It has that fluorine coating on the lens, so it will repel water and dust and oils and things like that. Also, all of the buttons and the dials and stuff like that have a special rubber sealing to keep them weather resistant as well. In terms of pricing, this lens is going to come in at $12.99. So in my opinion, that's reasonably priced. It's comparable to all the other G Master lenses. It's it's a little bit more expensive than the Sigma Art lens, but we already talked about the Sigma Art lens is heavier. It's going to be slower, just a much better lens all around out of this G Master lens. And then it's also not that much more expensive than the Carl Zeiss version. And again, as we talked about, this lens is going to be faster, lighter, smaller, all the good things that you're going to want out of your G Master lens. So yeah, what do you guys think of the new G Master lens? Let me know down in the comments. Let me know if you're going to pick one up. And as always, give that like, give the subscribe. It really helps the channel out, helps me out. And yeah, catch you on the next one, guys.